Okay, so all poker machines since time immemorial have utilised two general principles that we know are very effective at addicting people or habituating people to the use of the machine. The first is operant conditioning, which is where you will provide a reward which is unpredictable, so a random reward. And if people are presented with a situation in which they get a random reward from a device, then they will establish behaviour that is very hard to, as they say, extinguish. And that was discovered in the 1950s by B.F. Skinner using animal experiments, usually on rats and pigeons and so on. He discovered that if you give a predictable reward, then it's very unlikely that you'll establish the behaviour. People only flick it when they want the reward. But if you give it intermittently, then it becomes a very addictive characteristic. The second feature is what we call classical conditioning. This is if you reward a particular event with sounds and lights or a particular stimulus, even a smell, then what you find is that an animal and a human will associate that particular event with that smell and will become habituated to it. And that was developed in the 19th century by Ivan Pavlov, a Russian physiologist who did experiments on dogs. Ring a bell and feed the dog, then eventually just ringing the bell makes the dog salivate in anticipation of the reward. So all poker machines do that. What we've discovered in recent years, though, is that electronic machines have much more capacity to incorporate these types of reinforcements and to do so at no cost to the operator. And they do this by operating on multiple lines at once. So you can bet, for example, on a contemporary machine, you can bet on 50 lines at once. And sometimes you will get a win on a line which is less than the amount you wagered. So if you bet, say, $5 on the machine, but you get a win on one of the 50 lines you're using, then it might give you 30 cents back or 50 cents back. But the machine will still celebrate that win. So you get the reinforcement, the operant, and classical reinforcement associated with that, but it doesn't cost the operator anything because they've still taken, $4.50 off you. So that's called a loss disguised as a win, and it's very common in Australian-style machines now, and it leads to a doubling of the reinforcement rate. So you get about, a third of the events on the machine consist of some form of win, a very small one usually, but sometimes a larger one. Another third or so on Australian-style machines will consist of losses disguised as wins, so that doubles the reinforcement rate at no additional cost. And we also know that near misses, which can be engineered via the use of unweighted reels, which I'll explain in a minute, provides another layer of reinforcement. Now, we also know in more recent years we've discovered that the mechanism by which these conditioning principles function is essentially the brain's reward system, the dopamine system. And dopamine is a brain chemical. What it does is it provides a sense of well-being. If you get the dopamine response once or twice a day, that's fine. It just teaches you that bananas or whatever are good to eat and that you should look out for them in future. But if you get it every 2 or 3 seconds, what it does is it essentially takes over your brain and you become, to all intents and purposes, addicted. And that's the same mechanism that all forms of addiction utilise to establish the behaviour that is seen as the big reward. That's the basic principle, and poker machines, electronic machines, are very good at doing that because of their capacity for programming. Now, the other thing about machines is because they're now electronic, they don't need fixed mechanical reels. So the number of symbols on each of the apparent reels, they're not real, but the number of symbols on them can be as many or as few as you wish. So it's not unusual for machines to have different numbers of symbols on each reel and indeed different numbers of winning symbols on each reel. So a machine might have 30 symbols on each of the first few reels and then 45 on the last. It also might have one of the winning symbols on the first reel but multiples on latter reels. And if, as is the case with most machines, they pay out left to right, then having a small number of winning symbols on the extreme left and a larger number on the right gives you the sense that you're getting close to a win, even though it is very remote indeed. So that's what triggers the capacity of designers to build machines which have essentially deliberate near misses built in, and as I said earlier, that provides another layer of reinforcement. And the reel is simply there to give you the illusion that the answer is not already known. I mean, the machine, as soon as you push the button, the machine solves the problem, and it it knows exactly what the result will be. So, all of these tricks combine to make pokies in Australia incredibly dangerous and highly addictive.